Hi, in this video I'll be showing you how you guys need to create your CodeChef account. So this is the landing page of CodeChef.com. We'll get to sign up, write your full name, your email address, and give it a password. Click on I agree and hit register. Now on the registered, so basically the mail you entered, you will be receiving a code. So head over to that mail and copy paste that code in this field and click on verify, and you need to enter your phone number to get your credits. So add your number here. So our number is verified. Click on next, choose any programming language. So for example, I do programming in C++, so I'll click on programming languages, or if I'm doing DSL, I'll simply click on DSL. Like, it's just your choice what you like to choose, and say I like to learn C++. I'm a novice. I'm just starting how learn how to code. We will stick with the free plan. So in this video, I'll be showing you how to change your username at CodeChef. Simply just head to your profile and click on my profile. In your username, you see the small icon. Click on this. Make sure the username you are writing is your team leader's name. For example, if my name is Piyush and I am the team leader, so the username must include your name. For example, if we say my name is Piyush and I set my username to Piyush, and we get an error that user with this name already exists. So in that case, what I can do is add some random numbers behind it. Say I write Piyush 7654. Change username. So you can see I have changed my username from random name to my name Piyush followed by some random numbers. So what you must do is your username must contain the team leader's name. So in this way, you can change your name in CodeChef.
So this video is a demonstration of how you guys will be using CodeChef to submit your solutions. So this question I'll be solving in language C, and let's start solving the question. So basically we are given two integers a and c, and we need to find an integer b such that it is the average of a and c, and it must be an integer. Like if we try to imagine a case, say if we have two numbers, say 3 and 5. So the average of 3 and 5 would be 3 plus 5, 8 divided by 2, that's 4. And that's an integer. So in that case, we need to print 4. We can also see the same case here in the sample one. Now, if we take any of the two numbers, say we take 2 and 5, so 2 plus 5, 7, 7 divided by 2, that's 3.5. So in that case, if it is not an integer, we need to output minus 1. We need to only output b only and only if it is an integer. Now, let's read the input format. So the input format says the first line of input would contain a single integer t, noting the number of test cases. So basically, test cases means how many inputs would be checked around your logic. So how do we actually perform it? Simply declare a variable int t. We take input scanf %d and t. Now, after getting input of number of test cases, a number of cases basically define how many times you would take the input and you would get the result. So we'll be using a while loop, while t minus minus and its body. So basically, what this loop does is it checks how many times the input is given. Say if we write 3 means we are providing 3 times the 3 inputs, so it would be running 3 times. So anything you place inside the while block would run for each test case. Test case means how many times the input would be checked and output will be provided. So let's read another line of input format. So we have already done the first line. The second line says each test case consists of two space integers a and c. So anything that each test case contains must be written inside the while loop. We everything like anything that must be run in each test case must be written inside the while block. So we declare two integers int a and c. And now we take input and we know that these are two space integers, so we'll be writing scanf %d space %d and a c. Now we have taken the inputs. Now we will be calculating the sum since we need to find the average, and output format says for each test case output -1 if there exists no integer b, which is the average of a and c, else output the value of b. So if average of a and b is an integer, we need to output that integer. In case it is not an integer, we need to output -1. So let's find the sum because we know that average is sum of all elements divided by number of elements, and in this case we only have two elements. That means we will be dividing by 2 only. So in sum would be a plus c. Now, if we consider if we are always dividing by 2, we basically need to check whether the number is even. If a number is even, then it would get completely divided by 2. So we can simply check if sum mod 2 equal 0 means that number is even, and it would result in an integer value, basically a whole value when we would be dividing it by 2. So we will simply do printf %d \n and our number that would be sum divided by 2. Else means odd number. The number is odd, means it would not get completely divided by 2. So in that case we would be printing -1. We would simply print -1. And let's run the code. As you can see, uh, for this input case we are getting the same output, and we can submit the code. So the main thing, which is different, like how CodeChef is different from Lead Code or HackerRank, is that you need to define int t, basically the number of test cases. You need to input the number of test cases and run a loop while t minus minus. Basically, what this condition is doing, it is running the loop until t is getting to 0. Say if value of t is 3, so for first loop, first iteration t is 3, then 2, then 1, then 0. As soon as it reaches 0, it breaks out of the loop and we come out of the loop and simply return 0. Basically, we get reached to the end of the file. So basically this video is a demonstration. So how do you would be solving the questions on CodeChef? So the difference is the in CodeChef you basically need to enter test cases. If we talk about this question, if we read this question, we are given two integers a and c, and we need to find an integer b, which means the following condition that b must be an integer and b is the average of a and c. Meaning if we have two numbers, say 3 and 5, so the average of 3 and 5 would be 4, like 8 divided by 2. So basically that would be 4. And if we take any other numbers, say we take 2 and 5, so 2 and 5, it makes sum is 7, and 7 divided by 2, that gives us 4.5. No, sorry, 3.5. So 3.5 is not an integer, so in that case we won't be printing the average, we would be printing -1. And if we talk about the input format, and that's the main thing that makes CodeChef different from LeetCode or any other platform. So you need to enter number of test cases. So how would we be doing that? We would be simply defining int t. Here t represents the number of test cases, and we would be inputting t. And the next thing would be doing is adding a while loop, while t minus minus, and the block of while loop. So what basically this while loop does is each test case. Now, what do you mean by test cases here? If we see the sample here, we can see here we entered 3, Then we entered two spaced integers 3 and 5, 6, 6, 2 and 7. And from the input format, we can say the first line is T. Test cases means how many numbers or how many times it would check, like it would run this block while T minus minus. Now, if we have 3, so it would run for this. So basically, anything you write in this while loop block, is a is the code which would get run in each test case. In each test case, what we have, the first line of input is T, and we have already written T, and we have already taken input of T. T represents how many times this loop would run. Basically, how many times it would check the test, how many times it would check the input basically. And in each test case, it consists of two spaced integers A and C. So if we write two integers, if we need to define two integers first, int A and C, and it says we need to input that, so we'll be inputting two integers A and C. Now we have completed our input. We have defined the number of test cases. We have also taken A and C input in each test case. Anything you write inside the while block would run for each test case. Now let's write our main logic. So the main logic asks us to find an integer b which must be an average and an integer. So we define int b equals to, or not b, we can say int sum equals to a plus c, because in an average what we do, number of sum of elements divided by number of elements. So we do a plus c. Now it asks us to return b only if is an integer. If it is not an integer, we need to return minus 1, or we need to print minus 1. So we can write a condition if sum mod 2. Why sum mod 2? Because here we have two integers, and if the sum of two a and c is even, then only we would get an integer. In any other case, if it is odd, say if we take 2 and 5 and we add 2 and 5, the sum is 7. In that case, the 7 divided by 2, that would not be an integer. So in that case, we will be printing minus 1. So if sum mod 2 equal 0, we need to print the average, that is sum divided by 2, and end of line. Else, if it is not an integer, basically it is an odd number, we need to print minus 1, see out minus 1. So with that, we have completed the main logic of our function, and let's run the code. So basically our code matches the sample test case, so we can submit the code.
So this video is a demonstration of how you guys would be solving problems on CodeChef. So how CodeChef is different from other platforms like LeetCode or HackerRack. Unlike LeetCode, there you just need to complete the function, and the rest, like the driver's code or the helper functions, are automatically completed by the LeetCode. But this is not the same with CodeChef. For CodeChef, you need to write your main code, or you can say the driver code and the helper functions. And also some like major questions on CodeChef require you to solve problems for test cases, basically number of test cases. So how you do that, like I'll be demonstrating this in this video. So if we consider this problem statement for the Java language, we are asked to write a program which accepts the count of test cases, basically which is represented by an integer called t, and each test case has one integer n. Okay, and for each we need to output what if input is less than or equal to 100, we need to output good. Else, if input is greater than 100 but less than or equal to 200, we need to output better. Else, if the input is greater than 200, we need to output best. So basically, first thing we need to learn is like how, what do you mean by test cases? So test cases means basically how many inputs it would check for basically how many times it would take input and check that respective output for that. For example, if we see the sample test case, here we gave first value, that is 3, which represents the number of test cases, means how many inputs we would be providing. So say we gave 100, 200 and 201. So for 100 we got output as good since the condition 1 was true. For 200 we got better since it hit the second condition, and we got for 201 we got best since it hit the third condition. So like how do we actually take input of these test cases? So first we need to create an object of scanner class to like take input for an integer. So what we'll be doing is scanner sc equals to new scanner system.in, and we need to take the input of number of test cases. So we will be defining int t equals to sc.nextInt. So t represents how many inputs it would be checking on, or how many inputs it will be like taking upon. So we will say for int I equals to 0, I less than t, I plus plus. So we ran a loop from 0 till t, basically number of test cases. Anything you write inside this loop would run for each test case. So for example, if we see in this question, we see accept the count of test cases. So we took input of test cases. The second input says us to each test case is one integer. So for each test case, anything that will be performed in each test case need to be present in inside this loop, which runs over number of test cases. So what we will be doing is we will be defining an integer n that would be sc.nextInt, since we already created a scanner class object to take input. Now let's check the condition. So if n is less than, oh, sorry, my bad, capital N. So if n is less than or equal to 100, we would be outputting good. System.out.println, println, we will be printing good. And for the second test case, what we have is if n is greater than 100 and n is less than or equal to 200, system dot out dot, in that case we need to print better. And for the third case, if it is greater than 200, so basically it's the else case, the system dot out dot println best in that case. So basically what we have did here is we created an object of scanner class to take input. We took input of number of test cases and we ran a loop from 0 till less than t. Basically for number of test cases, say if the value of t is 3, basically we are providing 3 inputs. So in that case it would run for 3 times for 0, 1 and 2. And inside that loop for each test case we are taking an integer n and checking the 3 conditions that was asked in the question. And that's it. Let's run the code. So as you can see, we are matching the sample test case and we can submit our code now. Okay, so that's how you solve problems on CodeChef for Java language.